Hello, everybody. In our Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu records what happened with the giving of the Aseret HaDibrot and the Luchot HaBrit at Har Sinai. And of course, at the time of the Egel Hazav, he recounts Va'efen va'ered min hahar, v'hahar boher ba'esh. Moshe descends the fiery mountain, u'shnei Luchot HaBrit al shnei yadai. The two luchos were upon his hands. When he approached the scene of the Egel, he grasped the luchos, v'ashlichem me'al yodai. I threw them from top my hands, v'ashaberem le'nechem, smashing the luchos to smithereens before your very eyes. But then later, we read in the Parsha regarding the second luchot, I took another set, just like the first, of luchot. I ascended Har Sinai, and the two tablets were in my hands. One has to be careful in looking at these psukim and note a very subtle difference. Regarding the second set of luchot, Moshe Rabbeinu records that the Shnei Luchot were biyadi, within my hands, whereas with the first Luchot, he refers not once but twice that they were al Shnei Yadai, they were upon my two hands. And what's the difference? Now, Samson Raphael Hirsch notes one is by the first Luchot, one by the second, but okay, we could discern that ourselves, but why is there such a difference between them? Furthermore, we have to question, even though Hashem says, Asher Shibarta, Ashrecha, you did a good thing in breaking the luchot, the question that has to be raised is, why would Moshe do this? The luchot had the writing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu upon them. And was he out of control? Did he get overly angry? Did he lose patience? Were they just stam too heavy for him? What's going on here? Chazal's literature shows us two sources that are similar with a subtle difference. In Avot Rabbi Natan, we are told, Nistakel Bahem, Moshe Rabbeinu glimpsed the Shtei Luchot as he was descending Har Sinai with the first Luchos. V'ra'asha parach ktav me'aleihem. He noticed that the ktav, the letters, had flown off of the surface of the Luchot. Amar, so Moshe reasoned to himself, Heyach ani notein liYisrael haluchot she'ein bahem mamish. So what am I left with? I'm left with blank stones? That's what I'm going to give to the people? There's no value in that. And so, as the simple reading of the Pasuk has it, Moshe cast down the luchot, and he decidedly broke them. It should be pointed out, he didn't destroy the Aseret HaDibrot. They were gone. But he did destroy the luchot that formerly had contained the Aseret HaDibrot. Now notice a subtle difference in the recording in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. There it says, V'hayu ha'otiyot nosot et atzman v'nosot et Moshe. The writing of the Aseret HaDibrot carried the luchot upon which they were written, and Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Chevan shera'u, and once they saw what was going on with the Egel, parchu min haluchot, they flew away from the luchot, v'na'asu kvedim al yedei Moshe. They became very heavy for Moshe. V'lo yachol Moshe lizbol oto ve'et haluchot. Moshe couldn't steady himself and also manage the weightiness of these slabs of stone. What's the difference? Let's remember that the Luchot Rishonot were Ma'aseh Elokim Hema. They had been brought about and created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. I remind you of Pirkei Avot that teaches us that these Luchot were one of the things that were created at the very, very, very end of creation, in the 6 days, if you will, of creation, along with the Be'er Miriam and other things of the like, Pi Ha'aton, and so forth and so on. And therefore, they were themselves spiritual. The writing is something that carried tremendous spiritual weight. The moment that the writing fled the Luchot, then there was nothing left of the intended spirituality of these Luchot that God himself had fashioned. We have to keep in mind that the Luchot were unique in this idea that human hands had nothing to do with your formulation. And therefore, with the first Luchot, Moshe refers to them as Al Shnei Yadai. He didn't have to hold them. They weren't in his grasp. They were on his hands. He wasn't doing anything. They were carrying him. It's reminiscent of the more famously known drasha that the Aron was nosei nosav. It carried those who ostensibly were meant to carry it in the desert travels of the Mishkan. However, the second Luchot, Psalacha, God told Moshe, you make the Luchot. There's going to have to be human involvement this time. You fashion the Luchot, I'll provide the writing. And therefore, when Moshe ascends Har Sinai, it says with the second Luchot that they were biyadi, in my hands. I was carrying them. And as I ascended Har Sinai, they didn't yet have the writing, and certainly no holy writing had fled the Luchot. There is an inherent message here that we're probably all familiar with, but bears repeating. Sometimes people look at the Kiyum Taryag Mitzvot and all that surrounds them as burdens to bear, and we fail to understand that this is a piece of eternity that was granted as a gift by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The writing, the message, the luchot upon which the writing appeared, and we blew it with the Egel HaZahav. But God gave us a reduced second chance. Luchot once again, this time man-made, suffused with the ruchniut of Devar Hashem. We have to look at the Torah as Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba. It gives us life. It gives us meaning. It gives us purpose. It gives us distinction. It gives us a higher sense of purpose. And as I said earlier, it gives us a grasp onto eternity. Shabbat Shalom u'mevorach.